Whoa. Hey, can you not? Stop it. Stop it. Stop blowing the wind. Stop it.
Fine.
I'm
You're
terrible
like,
at acting.
Needy. Why don't you listen to what I need every once in a while, huh? I mean, it might be because we're the same person and I'm actually the only one on set, but come on. Anyway, nice view we've got up here. There seems to be something of a crustacean jam session going on down there. Balloons are pretty great, aren't they? Surprisingly, they were actually used in war, although unfortunately, as far as I can tell, no one ever actually put weapons on them. However much fun that would have been. They're fine, probably. People first realized that these balloons could be used for military purposes on April 19, 1861, in an experimental test flight from Cincinnati, Ohio, when the pilot Thaddeus Lowe accidentally landed in South Carolina instead of Chesapeake Bay, which is where he was planning to go. Knowing that the South was on high alert after Fort Sumter mere weeks ago, Thaddeus left his balloon behind and took conventional transport back to the north. Clever lad, or should I say, clever Thad. Their lack of use as active members of combat doesn't mean that they never saw any action, though. In fact, the world's first anti-air fire was against one of these balloons, also in 1861, by a weapon commanded by E.P. Alexander. Although that was not its intent. Oh, what the frick? Dude, you were supposed to fire it in the background, like 20 degrees that way. Not towards me. Are you trying to freaking kill me, dude?
Sorry, sir.
Anyway, these early dirigibles couldn't steer any more than their modern-day counterparts, making it quite risky to launch without a tether, which Thaddeus did. That's why he ended up in South Carolina when he should not have been in South Carolina. They were launched by removing sandbags and lowered by a ground crew of 30 soldiers pulling on a rope while the balloon crew let out hydrogen. These early balloons actually did fly with hydrogen rather than warm air or helium, like modern balloons over there. The balloon crew communicated with their comrades on the ground using a telegraph wire because they were too far up to be heard through normal means, aka talking. The difficulties were worth it, however, because, to quote Thaddeus himself, this of course also meant that the point of observation was commanded by an area nearly 50 miles in diameter. You might be wondering, why aren't these balloons still used today? This sounds like a great idea. If you do happen to be wondering that, I would recommend making an appointment at a nearby mental hospital, because that is a terrible idea. Hydrogen, weapons, firing rounds into the hydrogen, explosions, generally not good. And also we have planes now, so it would kind of be redundant to have balloons and planes. Actually, it would be really dangerous to have balloons and planes on the same battlefield, so don't do that. The end of the Balloon Corps' career was brought about by surprisingly normal factors, given how bizarre the idea was. Bacon, bank, Benjamins, bills, bucks, cash, coin, dinero, Franklin. The balloons themselves cost a lot of money, and the crew was paid more than normal soldiers. And that makes sense if you consider the fact that the soldiers could retreat for medical care if they were wounded, whereas the balloon crew are out of luck if something went wrong, but that's beside the point. The pay difference caused the members of the Balloon Corps to be on the receiving end of a generous helping of fear, uncertainty, and doubt of general efficacy, or FUDGE for short. Eventually, Thaddeus got tired of him and his men being abused by their comrades, so he resigned, and without his leadership, the Balloon Corps dissolved 4 months later. Sadly. Well, not really sadly, actually. The Balloon Corps may have helped in a few battles, but personally I'm glad it didn't go on for much longer, partially because they were boring and didn't put any guns on their balloons, and partially because soon ground weapons would be able to actually hit the balloons. Meaning a lot of people would have died in balloons, not being able to get to the ground to not die, which would be sad. Oh, it seems that it's time for me to go. Bye. It's the end of my speech. See ya. Smell you later. Sayonara, comrades. Bleed.